So Andy, I'll let you introduce yourself. Tell us all about the career that you did have in policing. And if you could let us know as well, what had you transitioning after 30 years?
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Andy. And it's an absolute honour to be asked. It really is, and incredibly nerve-wracking actually as well. So I do a few of these in the UK, but so it feels just, I don't know why I'm doing the same thing, but it just feels different. But obviously, I'm very, very grateful for the opportunity, and I know we've got some members within your group that are members of Blue Light Leavers as well, which is fantastic. I think first off, I'd really like to say, a massive thank you to all of the, first responders and particularly, what law enforcement officers are going through over there at the moment, and how tough it's been for everyone. And just want to let you know that, we sympathise and really empathise with everything that's going on, and what you're having to do, and the risks that you're going through at the moment as well. And obviously, we've had similar sort of issues over here in some of our cities and towns as well. So it's a massive thank you from me, and we appreciate what you do.
Yeah, thanks. And that's one reason why I believe you and I felt this was so important to do right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's so much. I keep hearing stories about how the families are not safe at this moment, and people would really like some options. And then right now there's some police areas as well where there's no policing anymore. So people do need to find other options. Yeah,
incredible. So, I just really want to reassure you that there are plenty of options out there. Yeah. It is a funny time through, and obviously because of COVID and the potential of a recession afterwards as well. And, obviously we've seen the start of that, and it could go on for a while yet. So it is a really unique time. There are still opportunities out there without a shadow of a doubt. But I think first off, if I just give you a little bit of background from my career history. So I started off in London. I did 12 years in London. I was a regular cop, and then moved on to on the riot squad down in London called the Territorial Support Group. And I did that for 4 years, a phenomenal role, thoroughly enjoyed it. And then I moved out to my home county, which is about an hour outside London. And my father had been in the force, and actually we actually overlapped in the same organisation for a few years, which was really lovely. Then having moved to my home county, again I was on response for a few years, and then I moved into the dog section. So I was a canine handler for about 6 years as well. So it was firearms support dog and drugs and firearms recovery and that sort of thing as well. And probably the best time in my career, to be honest. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was great fun. And, the dog made me look good. It was, he was so talented and such a great dog. And I just used to sort of hang on to the back of him, and he would take me to some amazing prisons, So very, very fortunate. I think the first time I really started looking at my options was when I was on the dog section. And, I'd been I was probably mid-service at that stage. In fact, a little bit over mid-service. And I was divorced and very amicable, but divorced all the same. I had a young daughter. And, got on very well with my ex, and she'd remarried. And, I had loads of access to my daughter. And then I had a phone call from my ex, and said we need to talk. So I went to see her, and she told me that her and her husband and Charlotte, my daughter, were wanted to move to Australia. They'd been offered work over there, and they wanted to move over to Australia. And obviously that came as a massive shock. I sought legal advice, and initially I fought it, and then I actually sort of took a walk into my hometown, and it was a case of Sydney or my local town, Northampton, and it's a bit of a no-brainer really. And so it was in her best interest to actually sign the paperwork, I felt, and let her go. And so I went from seeing her sort of a few times a week to a few times a year, which is incredibly tough. And that was really the first time where I actually looked at my career and wanted to do something different. There were no forces in Australia that were recruiting at that time. It was just, that wasn't an option. I joined the job at 18. I joined very, very young. And, I had no other skills. I hadn't done anything else. And so I was really lost. There was no one around either to help you. There was no organizations there that were helping cops move on. And so basically I just sort of dug in and thought, right, I'm here, I'm stuck. I just need to crack on and head down. And so that was really the first time in my entire career that I thought, I fancy doing something else and I need to do something else because I want to be closer to her. And it just didn't pan out. So after that, I took promotion and I was a sergeant and I did some response and neighborhood for a little while. Then moved into firearms. I was over here. Obviously, we have dedicated firearms teams, so we don't all carry. I was on a dedicated firearms team as a sergeant. Really enjoyed that. I was never a natural shot. It was something that I struggled with a little bit, but managed to scrape through. And then I got to in my mid-40s. And I was feeling awful. I was still doing shift work. I'd done shift work for 26, 27 years, Andy, and felt so rough. And I know you and I have had this conversation before, but, I felt really, really poorly all the time. So I went to see my GP and my doctor, and the doctor said, look, you need to either change career or do something else within policing. So I then managed to apply for a training role for a couple of years. And so I was in charge of the riot training, public order training, and CBRN. And an officer safety training as well.
So your doctor knew that training did not mean it was less stress?
Training was not 24/7.
Okay. So
and at that stage, so I had a young family as well, and that's remarried, young family, 2 young kids, and it was really hard going. And first in, last out as a supervisor, that sort of thing as well.
Yeah.
So it was pretty tough. So I did that for a couple of years, and then purely really through fate, an opportunity came up where I was asked, because my background was public order, dogs and firearms. We had a massive collaborative program going on. I was asked if I would basically project manage a couple of work streams for a huge collaborative program we had between 4 forces. And as a result of that, I did a training course, which gave me some options for when I left. So I was very, very fortunate. And then I moved into project management for a change project. Thoroughly enjoyed that. It was great fun. Inherited a fantastic team. But I was really, my initial CV when I left policing was so police orientated. And I thought I'd sort of de-policed it. And I remember going for one particular interview with a consultancy. And the guy said, look, you've got some fantastic skills. He said, well, half of the stuff on your CV, I have no idea what it even means, let alone how it relates to what we want to do, and what I'm doing within this organization. So that was a bit of a lesson learned. And so, obviously we'll cover CVs as we go through. So I moved into change, into project management, and then moved into business change and organizational change. And then from there, I basically went freelance. And, since leaving the police, I've gained more qualifications. So I've done other career relevant qualifications. I graduated for the first time in my life at the age of 53 with a postgraduate diploma in change management and innovation. And that was an extraordinary thing to do as well. So, and again, we'll talk a little bit about courses as well and how that can help you. Mm-hmm. Really, really lucky. I've always seemed to be in the right place, right time. I was very lucky. I had a great career, picked up some scars mentally, physically along the way, but and it definitely impacts my parenting and those sort of things, although I don't suffer PTSD. But certainly, the way I parent and how I'm overprotective. And I know, you and I have spoken as well about, struggles sleeping sometimes and waking up after an hour of being asleep and all these sort of things as well. So I think, having done shift work for 30 years and I'm still in full-time education, full-time employment, there's still some residual effect. However, the benefits of moving away from policing have been massive for me, both financially and, from a family perspective as well. So business organizational change is what I do now. Now rolling out Microsoft Teams across an organization of 40,000. And, 5 years ago, I was, sort of running around with a gun in my hand and just prior to that with a dog, so it's incredible really to think how things can move on so quickly. And, there are options open for you. And blue light leavers came about because I was being asked more and more people coming up to me and saying, look, how did you go about doing it? We need to, I want to look at my options and see what else I can do.
Yeah.
And so Blue Light Leavers came about. I was helping a few people and helped them get into new roles and leave policing, both mid-service and in retirement. And it just got to the stage where, I've got my full-time job, I've got my family. I play in a band now, which I was never able to do. I play drums in a covers band, a sort of indie band. And, we do weddings and all that sort of stuff. We're available for Canada and USA, obviously, as well. So, and, just having those other options are fantastic.
So you have more of a life now outside.
Very much so.
Yeah, outside
very
of
much so.
your job too.
Yeah.
Okay.
And just, no confrontation.
Yeah.
No confrontation. I work with, I didn't mind confrontation. I felt I dealt with it quite well. I was able to calm things down, but it's still, you feel it, don't you? You feel it inside you. When you get home, you go to bed and you can still feel it. And, you dream it and all these sort of things. And it is, just having options now and weekends off and that sort of stuff. And I've helped a lot of people now do the same thing. And I created Blue Light Leavers because I wanted to be able to help people on a mass scale.
Yeah.
And do it on a much bigger scale than I could do it on one-to-one. So I do group training sessions as well. I've got a program, all these sort of things as well. And it's just lovely being able to help people and watch people progress. Mm-hmm. And at least, some people that want some help, but actually they're not quite ready yet. And so I'm just there for them as and when they're ready, So, very, very lucky.
I think for some of the people here too, just sussing out your options. Because I know for myself that when I don't have an option and I feel stuck in something, I want out. Mm-hmm. But sometimes too, just knowing that you have options and you can maybe work towards some of those, but then you can still enjoy what you're doing as well. And then if the climate in your area changes with policing where it is very unsafe for you, then you have an option to get out. So sometimes it's good to have a backup plan. Yeah. Sometimes it's also knowing these things, it actually brings other things out of you. I was listening to the podcast that you had come out this week, and with the officer that you were interviewing there, I mean, the jobs that she did for the first 3 years to get her to something that was actually her passion that she realized had been her whole life.
Absolutely.
Comes out. So sometimes just searching those things. I mean, when you get into policing, you may think that's your passion and then it may not. Yeah. Or people too that are retiring and still young and wanting to do things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I believe I joined your Blue Light Leavers group. I think it was very early on. And when you started the spreadsheet that had what officers had done, what was their, what had been their roles and how long they'd been in service and what they're doing now. It's so inspiring seeing the differences of jobs. So can you maybe just run through a list of jobs? Because some of them are very much where the job actually, where it translates from first responders, but some of them are absolutely totally different. Can you maybe run through?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I'll share my screen in a second, I think. But just to go back to what you're talking about, I think it's really important that if you are considering, your reason why is so important, because a lot of the time, we're comfortably uncomfortable. And actually your reason why has to be big enough to force you to do something different. And actually just being a bit hacked off with what's going on probably isn't going to be enough.
Yeah.
But there is also a big mistake as well that cops tend to make, is think we can only do certain roles. We can only go into security. We can only go into fraud. It's those sort of, and actually there are so many options open to us.
Yeah.
But it is, I would really encourage people to, to sit down with a pen and paper and actually write down what it is that you enjoy most about the job now. What are the things that you get the most enjoyment from? And what are the things that you really don't want to do? If you absolutely know beyond all shadow of a doubt that you no longer want to do shift work, you don't want to deal with confrontation, you don't want to carry a firearm, whatever it might be, there's something there that will give you an indication. If you write down what you do want to, the things that you like most and the things that you hate, it will give you some idea then of where you might fit in terms of your niche. So if I just share my screen, and then I'll share a list of roles, and these are actual roles that former cops have moved into, and all of these are members of the Blue Light Leavers Facebook group. So these aren't made up.
No.
Every name, actually I haven't got the names on here, so I've cut the names out, but every role on here is a role that someone either in policing or first responders, law enforcement or fire, EMT, whatever it might be, have gone on to do. So let me just share my screen.
Yeah. And I know I find it so inspiring when they talk about their jobs, or just even talking about the interview process, about how, you were able to teach them, which we'll get into that, but how you
Yeah.
were able to teach them as well how to, what's it called? Just go through the interview process, because that's so different.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. Now I'm here. I can't find it. I can't get the can't get the sheet. So there we go.
There we go.
Okay. So you can see that. Okay. So talked about business change manager earlier, and that's organizational change, business change. We deal with change all the time. We carry people through, we help people, we support people through organizational change, something we're very, very natural at. My wife is a personal trainer. She left she was a cop for 15 years. She was a detective. She left and is now a personal trainer. Teaching English as a foreign language, project management. Project management is a great role that a lot of us can do, because, throughout our careers, we're dealing with operations. For example, if you're, whether you're a specific, it might be SWAT, or it might be, some sort of specialist team, but you create packages, you develop intelligence and information, you take that from start to finish. And that's how we pick up these particular skills for that suit project management really well. We have to hit milestones. When you're developing a case that needs to go to court, you're following a set process, and certain things have to be done by a certain time. There are certain actions. There's stakeholder management, which is basically how we deal with people and how we look at managing their expectations, how we communicate with these people. It's all part of project management. And a lot of people I deal with, actually, I steer towards project management if they've got the right sort of background for it. Neighborhood policing, for example, if you're working out if you're a community officer, or you're working within fire, for example, and you're doing this community work, that's fantastic examples of multi-agency work that look great on your CV. And you've developed things from start to finish. You're dealing with stuff. So, I did some whitewater canoeing with some kids that were right on the cusp of criminal behavior. And I got them involved with our neighborhood policing team. I got them mixed with some kids that were just from a different social group, but from the same area. And that was a project. These sort of things that you don't really think of as projects, but actually they really are. Corporate security manager. We've got film production security coordinator, program manager, and we've got people who own their own businesses. So we've got managing directors, self-employed. If any of your group, Andy, have some sort of training background, learning and development is a massive area that we fit really well into, because we're used to, developing lesson plans, facilitating lessons, delivering training, all those sort of things. And there's a big market for that in large organizations. Pastoral care within secondary education over here. And I know over there as well, because I've done some research as well. There's some opportunities within education, whether it's as pastoral care, looking after the kids, their welfare, well-being, or whether it's actually delivering education, delivering training to them, and delivering education within criminal justice, that sort of thing. Consultants are here, and I know you've got the big four over there as well with EY, KPMG, Deloitte, PwC. They do a huge amount of transformational work with national organizations. And again, we fit very well into that type of role. We know the difficulties and the challenges that these organizations are going through. We know how it impacts the people that work at those organizations, because we've been through it ourselves. So, again, the big four are worth looking at to see what's open to them as well. Obviously, we've got telecoms, cell site, and, cell site specialists, anti-money laundering. We've even got a captain for Emirates. He basically, he remortgaged his house and did his pilot's training. And he joined one of the sort of smaller airlines, and he's now living over in Dubai, and he's a captain for Emirates. And so, as you were saying earlier, they're not always, I'll just scroll through these now, but they're not always the obvious sort of roles. Yes, we've got risk account managers within banking and financial industry. We've got lecturers, people driving cars, all these sort of things.
Was it one of your other podcasts that I was listening to where somebody was talking about cyber, is it cybersecurity?
Absolutely. Yeah. I'll go through that in a second. Yeah.
A large one for where so many of your skills transfer that they were even saying in that podcast where some companies will actually train you on the tech because
Yeah.
the skills that you have on the investigative side are so strong
Yeah.
that is more valuable to them than you coming with the tech knowledge.
Yeah, absolutely right. That is absolutely right. And we'll go through that in a second. And I'll signpost as well a few free courses that you can do as well. So,
Right.
but yeah, so that's, these are all actual roles that first responders are now doing, having left
I
first
hear
response.
a lot in the group as well about the rail, about working for the rail line.
Yes. Yeah. Over here, it's really popular.
Yeah.
It pays well.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a lot of cops in particular that move towards the rail industry and transport as well. Different types of transport.
And all could do that: fire, first responders, EMS.
Absolutely,
yep.
Absolutely right. Yeah. So again, I'll go through that in a second. But I just wanted, I think, once you've actually identified, what you like and what you don't like, you can then maybe look at sectors. And so I'm not going to spend any time on this in great detail. But again, you look at the education sector, and as we were going through that other list, you can see roughly where they're coming from. So you've got education, you've got financial, you've got transport, and within transport as well, you've got operations managers, 24/7 roles within operations, if you do like shift work, incident response, all of those sort of things within these different organizations. And these aren't specific to the UK. These work across the globe.
Yeah.
Okay. And obviously there's some self-employed type of roles as well for those that are approaching retirement or in retirement, and they're actually looking then to use, what could they put their pension towards? What could they then do?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, and then there's consultancy, as I said earlier. And you've got the obvious things like close protection, that sort of thing.
Okay.
There's got some government roles, public and private sector, security roles, telecoms. And these are basically mapped across from that list I've just shown you into sectors. So you get an idea on what it is that you love doing, what you're passionate about. Let me just see if I can get something else up here as well. What it is that you love doing, what you're passionate about. But, I know you wanted me to touch a little bit around CVs and that sort of thing as well. And
yeah.
If you want me to go towards that, it's, I'm more than happy to. So I think, the three biggest questions are very much around, excuse me, what jobs can I actually do? What are my transferable skills, and how do I write a CV? Yeah. So in fact, if we'll go to transferable skills, maybe that might be the next one to go through, and then it'll map across then into CVs. Does that sound okay?
Absolutely. Yep. That was the order of questions I had here too.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, great. So I'll cover a little bit around what skills and experience, hard versus soft skills. I'll talk a little bit around the transferable skills myth as well, and we'll go through some examples of what soft skills you can transfer across. Okay. But something that's really important to remember, and this was Harvard, Carnegie, and Stanford Research Institute, because we all think that our jobs are based around our hard skills. I can drive a car at X amount of miles an hour, and I'm a class 1 trained driver, or I carry a firearm, whatever it might be. I can do all these hard skills, public order training, that sort of stuff. But Harvard, Carnegie, and Stanford Research Institute say that success in getting, keeping, and advancing in a job depends 85% on people skills, or your soft skills, and only 15% on technical. The most important thing to do is get in the door. If you can get in the door for an interview by transferring those amazing skills that you've got, get those onto a CV, get your resume done professionally, and invest in yourself. Get through the door, sit in front of someone, and just talk about amazing things that you've done. Because again, I hear this on other podcasts as well. I've interviewed some senior execs in a couple of different organizations, and they're fascinated by the sort of stuff that we've done. So we've got to be proud of what we've done. Mm-hmm. But the skill is actually depolicing it a little and putting it into a language that they will understand. Yeah. And just get in front of them. And so, I was really fortunate. The first role I went for and that I interviewed for, I got. They're either desperate, I don't know what it was, but anyway, somehow I managed to get straight in. And I was moved into an organization that I knew nothing about, and in a sector that I'm into, transport sector, national infrastructure, I knew nothing about. And I inherited a team of people that I obviously had nothing to do with previously as well. So, you know, but it's the soft skills that got me through it, and the ability to manage them and build those relationships, be willing to learn really quickly. These are the sort of skills, and these are the sort of things that will help you and carry you through. So, I just really want to get over that. You've got some amazing skills and experience, and it's just then transferring them across.
Yeah.
So this is a bit wordy, this. So I just threw this down literally a few minutes before we came on, but I want to talk this through just really quick. So examples of some of these key softer skills, and these have been identified in 2020 as LinkedIn's top 5, if you like, of what people are looking for in 2020. So the ability to collaborate and work effectively with others, the ability to influence others, innovative and creative thinking, resilience and adaptability, particularly with regards to dealing with change, because we're all going through a huge amount of change at the moment. And the ability to self-reflect, learn lessons and adapt to challenges. And another couple that I picked up as well, doing some research, purely specifically for this, I wanted to get right smack bang up to date information, for you guys, but and particularly for your market as well, is data literacy is really important. So the ability to actually, when you're looking at information and intelligence, for example, what do you then do with that? How do you understand what information you've got in front of you, and how do you then translate that into action? Okay. And that's data literacy. And again, if you can transfer that experience and those skills that you've got into an interview, it's really powerful. And that, I said, that ability to self-reflect, learn lessons, and adapt to challenges, that's that emotional intelligence, which is so, so important. Something that, sorry, Andy, go on.
No, this is everything that you guys do on every single shift. Every single 100%. Shift, you work on these skills.
Absolutely right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then if you link the next one to it as well, relationship management. Now, within the business world, it's known as stakeholder management. But we deal with so many people every shift, whether it's internal or external. But our ability to communicate with them, our ability to manage their expectations, which I keep talking about, but that's something we have to do all the time. We're basically keeping people sweet, whether it's internally or externally. We have to be assertive. We have to make decisions. But that stakeholder management is something that is regularly overlooked in resumes. And again, I'll talk through CVs in a minute, but the most important thing is actually reflecting those key soft skills within that first page of your resume.
So could you give me an example possibly of like what it would say in police speak and what we would say in a civilian way of like an example?
Yeah, certainly. So let's say, for example, you, as a responder, you're turning up to a particular incident. And the first thing you're going to do is actually manage that. So you turn up and it's carnage in front of you. What is the first thing that you're going to do? You're going to take control, aren't you? So you actually take control, you manage that. What you're then going to do is you're going to have to communicate effectively. So you've got different parties. They might be, it could be fighting, it could be a collision, whatever it might be. But let's say it's a collision, for example, but a nasty one. So you've got to prioritize. You've got to manage different people within the scene. You've got to identify and you've got to risk assess, what is going on within that particular scene. You've then got to be able to communicate effectively with fire and rescue, with the paramedics. You've got to identify who is the priority. You've got to gather information. You've got to take reports. You've got to report write, and that report writing has to be accurate. That's evidence. So you're then going to have to go to court potentially and explain what has gone on based on your initial assessment and the actions that you took there and then. All of that is taking place under immense pressure. You could have members of the public coming by giving you a load of grief. You've got to manage that as well. So at the same time as you're trying to care for someone, you've got to be confrontational and push someone away from the scene potentially and potentially get physical, whilst having to deal with a really difficult situation in front of you as well. So if you then, if you transfer those across, that sort of those skills and that experience across to a resume, you look at leadership skills, communication skills, stakeholder management, report writing, being part of the evidential chain, honesty and integrity, all of those within, just within one incident, if you like. Mm-hmm. Again, if you're with community policing, with neighborhood policing, for example, or like I said earlier, with sort of your paramedics or fire, if you're doing any sort of community work, you're building those relationships. You're building difficult relationships. You're having challenging conversations with people. You are building bridges. You may be facilitating meetings. You may be in charge of those meetings. You may be chairing those meetings and taking minutes. You're then reporting back, what are the next steps? What actions have I got? So all of these things are very transferable. We just don't see it. We tend to be quite fixed in terms of what we can and can't do. Multi-agency, collaborative working, actually working collaboratively, we do all the time. We work with other agencies. We work with different departments. So collaboration and teamwork is a massive part. Again, really those softer skills that are really important within a resume.
Thank you.
So again, we've got a slide here with and again, I can share this with you later on, and by all means, it would just help you with some wording for your resumes. But the decision-making ability, delegation. So you've got leadership, problem solving, team working, communication, and all of the subheadings, if you like, through that as well, that all map across from everything that we deal with on a daily basis, that map across to skills and experience that then can map across to our resume.
Okay.
Do you want to talk about CVs? We said we would earlier, didn't we? Are you sure? That's all right.
Yeah, no, I know that you have a great, is it your first podcast that you did have out?
Yes. Yes.
I know that there are some members in my group that are in that and listen to your podcast. And I know they've told me they're like, I've listened to it 3 or 4 times with a paper and a pen, and I've written down all kinds of notes from that podcast. So yeah, I know that was super helpful too. I learned so much in that one. So. Yeah,
great stuff. Yeah, fantastic. And I've written resumes. I've written resumes for many people. I've done my own many times, and over the past 5 years since leaving, and Charlotte is, if you haven't listened to a podcast, please give it a listen. And she's got some. She gives templates away as well. So if you go to ckfutures.co.uk, that's ckfutures.co.uk. And if you, she gives free templates away, basically. You can register there for free templates, CV examples and that sort of stuff. So she's phenomenal. The secret to a good CV is achievements. Your CV has to be achievement led. And it was so refreshing to hear that from Charlotte as well, because I know that my initial CVs were very role and responsibility orientated. And so I spoke about what it is I actually do, very functional CV. And it was enough to get me through the door. But it didn't really stand out, I don't think, on reflection. And so it's really important that your resume reflects what you've done well and what you're most proud of. And you really got to ask yourself those questions. If you're struggling, okay, well, I got a commendation for this, or, I was recognized for doing this. But go a little bit deeper with it. What is this thing that where you've really made a difference? And then you transfer that across to your resume. Now, in terms of structure, it's the top of it. And what I would say is keep it really plain. 2 to 3 pages is enough. You'll hear a lot of the time 2 pages max, and you'll also hear first person versus third person. Personally, I'm not too keen if someone's writing about me in the third person. It just doesn't feel particularly right. It feels a little bit flash. Whereas I like to talk about, I did X, Y, Z rather than Andy did X, Y, Z. It just doesn't sound or feel quite right.
Yeah.
So again, keep it really simple. And the reason you need to keep it simple is because there's something called ATS. And this is globally used. This isn't purely for the UK. But you've got something called Applicant Tracking System. So when you apply for a new role through, I'm sorry, I'm a bit froggy. I've been talking all day at work as well, so it's a bit froggy. So yeah, applicant tracking system is basically a system that recruiters use to identify the keywords within your resume. So it's really important that you structure your resume in a plain and simple way so that it's easily read by these algorithms, by these systems. You know, you see some amazing CVs out there with boxes down the left-hand side and you know, very flash, loads of colors, all that sort of stuff. Keep it pretty plain. Not too plain, but keep it nice, clear, simple. Good heading at the top. Don't put your home address down, but just put the area that you live in, maybe your zip code and a contact email address and a phone number. Then at the top, it'll be your heading, be your name followed by a heading. And that heading is the role that you're applying for. Then beneath that, ideally what you'd be looking for then is maybe a paragraph about you and you know, what you're currently doing, what you've done, but just a little paragraph very, very quickly highlighting and matching as much as possible the keywords within the role description of the role that you're applying for. What then looks really good, and again, you get these templates. So I know I'm talking through it, but you've got templates that they're all over LinkedIn. You've got templates through Charlotte as well, as I said. But then look at your key skills and abilities and achievements, and they can be your softer skills. So you can evidence then in bullet point form, just a couple of words indicating the soft skills that again map across to the role description. What you'd then be looking for is on that first page, ideally, if you've got any specific courses that also map across to the role description, it's fantastic if you can then put a couple of courses. So for me, it's Prince 2, Managing Successful Programs. I'm also, I've got a Microsoft qualification as well. And so if I'm going for any roles that those specific roles are asking for those qualifications, I'll also highlight and call those out on that front page. And then if you can have the final part of that front page would be your current role, how long you've been doing it for, and it's perfectly okay to say what you're doing now. So if you are a first responder, put that down, but map it, and how long you've been doing it for, but map across the keywords from the role description, the job description, as much as you can into your evidence. And you know, we talk about transferable skills, and you hear transferable skills mentioned an awful lot. You know, Andy knows I'm not a big fan of the phrase transferable skills. We have skills, we have experience. The key to being successful, both with your resume and actually getting into interview, is being able to map those across from the role description into your resume. It's so, so important. You know, you might have some amazing skills that you've picked up on the way, but if they don't map what these people are actually looking for, you'll get binned. You won't even get through the door. And more importantly, you won't actually even get a response, because the applicant tracking system, it doesn't even get through to a human. So if you're not mapping across, so what I mean by mapping across, when you look at a particular job that you might be interested in, a particular role that you might fancy doing, you'll see some standout phrases and some standout words that they're looking for. And they could be technical, they could be, you know, role specific, but they could be generic on those soft skills, the sort of things I was talking about earlier. There could also be those courses that I was talking about. So go over with a highlighter, print it out, or go over with a highlighter and make notes of what you feel those keywords are within that role description and within the job spec, and map those across onto your resume. And that's then how you'll beat the applicant tracking system. And you know, if you can get through that, you get in front of people, that's when you can really excel and show how great you are and an amazing experience that you've got.
Great. Yeah, I've heard, I know in the group, so many people have raved about like just going over interviewing strategies with you as well in order to depolice them and make them a little more in the civilian language, because I know that happens to me. I get when people will say in my welcome post what they do sometimes, and I have to Google what they are because it's different acronyms for different things in different, like North America, Canada, sorry, the United States, Canada, UK. Like you guys all have different acronyms for different things.
Yes.
And sometimes my husband will come home and be like, "What is such and such?" He's like, "I don't know." So sometimes I just have to ask. But it is interesting because the language is so internal.
Yeah.
And being able to like, even just asking like a friend or a neighbor that's not in the policing world, like, do you understand what I just said? Because
Absolutely right.
like,
Yeah.
I know I've learned a lot that now I'm like, okay, I totally know what you guys are saying half the time.
Yeah.
But I do have to actually just, put my ego aside and my pride aside and go, okay, what does this mean?
Yeah.
Because it's such an internal language.
It is. And so, again, that skill of first respondering really is very, very important. It is mapping across those words that you're seeing within a role description, and mapping those across to your resume is absolutely vital. It really is. So.
Yeah, amazing. So I'm just going to do a quick check in the Facebook group and see if anybody has asked any questions.
Sure.
I see Jason Moody is saying hello to both of us. Hey, Jason, and Chris Ford as well. Chris is in my program, and I believe that he is in your Blue Light Leavers group as well.
Absolutely.
So
yeah.
I know he's been watching this as well. There's some others on here as well. So
awesome. No
questions at this moment. So where can people find you, though, if they do have questions?
Yeah, sure. So the Blue Light Leavers Facebook group is www.facebook.com/groups/Blue Light Leavers. You're very welcome there. I'm actually in the process of setting up a North America group as well called Out of the Blue. So I've literally just set that up today. So I'll get that across as well. Okay. At the moment, it's got nothing in it. So, but I'll be transferring a load of stuff across there as well. So, but yeah, Blue Light Leavers for now, through the website as well. Couple of other little bits, Andy, as well. I think, we spoke about cybersecurity earlier.
Yes.
And I just want to give people an idea of some of where you can go for some of these courses. And there's a lot of free courses about at the moment.
Yes.
So I use edx.org. So EDIA Echo Delta X-ray.org. Loads of free courses. And it's a North American website. But I recommend it within my Facebook group. There are some fantastic courses on there covering everything, I talk about predominantly sort of cybersecurity, project management, transport, education, those sort of things. EDX is a fantastic place to go. Other free courses, LinkedIn courses as well. So if you're not on LinkedIn yet, you really need to get yourself on there, because the search engine for new roles and jobs with LinkedIn is fantastic. Don't always apply for roles through LinkedIn. We can talk about that another time. But yeah, certainly, that will give you a good indication as to what type of roles are out there. But if you look at what you enjoy and what you don't enjoy, start focusing around some sectors and potential roles. We went through 60 plus roles earlier of actual roles that cops and first responders are now doing. And yeah, EDX and LinkedIn courses are fantastic. Focus on those soft skills as well. And, hopefully with the example I gave of people at that collision, you can see how easily things can map across and how those soft skills can map across to evidence for that particular role. So yeah, if you want to connect, I'm obviously we've got the Blue Light Leavers podcast as well. I know there's plenty of you listen to those and I'm very, very honored to speak to some incredible people, and some fantastic information there as well. There's a Blue Light Leavers website, and you can register for the newsletter there. And what I'll do, I'll share within the comments in the group as well. I'll share the LinkedIn guide as well. So you've got a LinkedIn guide that's specifically for first responders.
Absolutely. Yeah. If you could do the LinkedIn guide, your Facebook group, and the website would be great, because I know you have some really good blogs as well on your website.
I do. Yeah.
And just so that people know as well, like if you are in the Blue Light Leavers group, and it is quite a lot of UK jobs do come up at the moment, which is why you're adding them North American, because you're getting a lot of North American interest as well.
Yeah.
But the thing is when you see a job posting come up, sometimes I know what you encourage people to do is if that is in the UK, you can then start searching for those jobs in your area.
Absolutely.
So it just starts opening your eyes to what other things are out there and who is actually offering jobs to police officers.
Yeah.
And it will, then you can start doing, I know there was one job for was it a dog handler?
Yeah.
Or something, and people were
Yeah.
asking, oh, is this in the States? Because I know we have some dog handlers that are in your group.
Yeah.
From the States. But yeah, there's some phenomenal positions. Like, it's so inspiring, I think, to hear people's stories of where they were at, how they transitioned, and where they are now in the interview process, or when they land jobs, they post their job successes in there. And
Absolutely.
yeah, you've just been such a huge support for them. So thank you. This is so needed. I know when I talk to my group, they're always excited to learn information about what you are doing. So
that's really kind of you. Thank you so much. And I know I've thrown so much information at you tonight. So I was really conscious of giving you the information that you wanted, but there is so much to talk about and so much that we can help with. So, if anyone has any questions at all, then contact me. And also Andy at Blue Light Levers as well. So Andy at bluelightlevers.com.
The other thing we did not mention is anybody that is trying to get into your Facebook group needs to answer the questions. It's the same as my group. We don't let people in without answering the questions. We do screen you. So just tell them that you were from here, and what your role is whatever your questions are. I'm not sure. You didn't screen me when you let me in, but I was pretty early on.
Didn't need to.
I think. But yeah,
amazing guest on the podcast as well, Andy.
Yes.
You're podcast number 3, and it was an absolute honor to have you. So thank you for that.
Thank you. So yeah, Andy and I we do a lot of work together because what both of us do complements one another. So any questions for Andy? Andy is in my group as well. Fire them off on this post right here. He'll answer them there. Join his group, ask him questions in his group, email him. So many ways to get a hold of him. You are not stuck. You have options. And Andy will definitely help guide you with those options.
Without a doubt. And thanks so much for everything you're doing, Andy. Really appreciate it. You're doing some amazing work and so important. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right. Thanks, Andy.
Great to see you. Thanks a lot.